What does that mean from an execution perspective, right? Because I know there's platforms out there. There's all it sounds complicated, but it can also not be as complicated as it sounds. So can we just talk about each of the parts and just kind of understand what's involved in it? In just getting started. I mean, obviously it can get very advanced, right? But just to get started.
That's a critical question. And the answer is, think business first. Okay, technology is just a tool. Okay, just something to help.
Yes.
Most important is what do we need. Okay, so I'm currently performing this process. I'm onboarding clients in a bank.
Yes.
Okay, it takes. When you want to get a bank account open, you need to produce a lot of documents. Okay, how can I get those documents? How can I get this process of onboarding of clients more efficient, more pleasant for the customers, more pleasant for the employees that are working in the back office?
Yes.
Okay. It's just about this. Okay, and so to make it easier for the clients, you think of making it fully digital, for example, so that it's a workflow online that can be done from your sofa. You can upload your documents. Everything is simple. If you have a question, you have a virtual assistant to help you. In the back office of the bank, usually you have employees receiving those documents, typing those documents, from image to a digital form. Yeah, I mean, who wants to do that 8 hours per day? No, I mean, I wouldn't. I mean, wouldn't wish this for my worst enemy. Okay, so it's about helping those people in the back office, having optical character recognition tool, as you mentioned. So basically computer vision that helps to read the document, extract the information that we need, and directly process it into the transactional system that is it, for example.
And just put that part there, just trying to break it down. So we need to create the business process and have a look at it. And so I think the first part is rethinking the process, right?
Correct,
it's not taking the same process and just trying to automate it.
Exactly.
Rethinking it, right? Thinking, okay, so what are the steps?
The first, yes,
please.
That's definitely a very important step. I would say it's maybe the second one. The first one is to identify what are the business needs, okay, and where are they the strongest? Because at the end of the day, everything can be automated, but some of the processes have a high value of being automated, a higher value than others, and from my experience, if you have a look to the different processes you can automate in a company, and it can go from a few hundreds, 500s to a few thousands. Okay, if you really go to identify all of them, you see that only 5% of them, roughly 5% of them, will generate about 70% of the total value you can generate by automation. Okay, so it's all about focusing on those ones first, and as you say, then those processes we don't want to just copy what is being done today, because we know it's not efficient. So let's rethink them completely, and the best way to rethink them, redesign them, is to focus on the output, the outcome. What do we need at the end? Okay, in the onboarding process that I just described, at the end you need. The bank needs to be satisfied with all the criteria that need to be checked for clients to be so to manage regulation, but also to manage the risk of the bank. So what do we need at the end? Okay, that's what we need. So now, how do we get all this and on an automated way? Okay, so it's starting by the end that's the second step.
And so you start at the end. You create the steps, right? That's all good, right? And we can all create the steps in some type of wireframing software, or even on a piece of paper with squares and step by step, right? Like up on the whiteboard, if people have any whiteboards in their homes anymore, right? Like this office is open again now, so maybe in the office, but it's created. So you've got the steps, and now you start to think, all right, this step requires some OCR. This step requires machine learning. This step requires some language processing, right? Is that a developer which you need to hire to execute on that? Is that how companies should be thinking about this? Is it like, all right, so I now know the parts, I now know the challenges. Who can help me implement these challenges? Like, is it creating a team internally? Is it finding a partner that can help you? So what are some of the ways that companies are approaching that part of it? Because I can see that would be the biggest challenge, is that. I could be wrong, right?
Yeah,
Just to be clear.
I think when you get there, meaning when you get to a redesign process and you're clear on what are the steps that are necessary to get to your outcome, it doesn't need to be translated yet into what is the technology to help. Okay, but just that you need this, that. Mm-hmm. I think 70% of the work is done. That's the most important. Okay. Then it's about bringing a solution architect or someone who knows, doesn't need to be a very technical person, someone that knows that, okay, this to achieve this, you need this type of technology. To achieve that, you'll need this type. And so it can be one solution architect. It can be also, and I prefer this solution, to have around the table different talents coming from teams that usually are functioning on an isolated manner in companies. Most companies, large companies, have a team for robotic process automation, a team for customer service, which is dealing with chatbots, and another team that is about data science and machine learning. So it's really about bringing all those talents around the table and redesigning together and identifying which technology we need where, and identifying how do we connect those technologies together.
Okay, so basically, you do need somebody that is technical and has a technical understanding. And so you mentioned a solution architect. That could be internal, that could be a partner. But you want to have a conversation with all the teams involved in the process to get their feedback and their thoughts on what should happen, right? Now, before you said we can automate every process, right? In a company, right? And most companies, it's just a collection of processes, right? And then some sales and marketing and brand, right? You know what I mean? Yes. Like everything else, seems to be like, if it's a service, it's like a knowledge service, right? Like if it's a product, it's manufacturing that can be covered through robotics and so on, right? But how do you get the buy-in? So what are those people then going to do if they're going to help you create? Like I was watching some show and they were making like a joke about AI. Like there was like a bot there, and they were like, "So we need to train the bot to do our job to replace us," And it was just a comedy show, but this is like a thought that people have. If we are helping creating this thing for the process, what about our jobs? So what does that mean for us? And so, how do companies kind of approach that challenge or that conversation? Let's call it.
Yes, yeah, and it's a critical component of a successful transformation. Okay, when we explain when we explain the different capabilities in the book, when we explain the framework to successfully achieve such a transformation, people comes first. People is in the center. Okay. So I'm used to say that those transformations are made by people for people. Okay, so you can't, if you miss the people aspect, you miss the project. It's okay. When we talk about people, we talk about two types of people. One is management. Management like CEOs, C-levels. Mm-hmm. Their involvement, information, education, and sponsorship of the transformation are critical. I've never seen a company succeeding in this type of transformations without this. Okay, that's a critical component. So it's about bringing them to this level and helping them to build their vision. And to build their vision, we need to help them understand what are the benefits, quantitative, qualitative, what can be a typical roadmap, and they will be able to understand, knowing the benefits, how much investments they are ready to put in front of it. Okay, that's the first but critical component of people. The second are all the other employees, and they are extremely critical as well. there is no there is no transformation that happens without people. So you need to inform them, educate them. So that's one of the reasons we wrote the book. Huh? That's to create this tool that is necessary for those transformations to succeed.
Yes.
When you've informed and educated everyone in the company, you need to go further. It's not enough. You need to involve the people in the transformation. Today, and more, the technologies are getting more user-friendly. You might have heard about low-code, no-code technologies. The philosophy behind that is that everyone in the company is a potential developer, citizen developer. Okay.
Yes.
And I think this dimension is extremely important and needs to be leveraged by companies today, because for two key reasons. When everyone in the company has the opportunity, is empowered to build their own automations, to improve their own work using automation, then their ownership will change and will and they feel they are part of the transformation. They are part of the dynamic that is happening. They are not left behind. That's the first thing. And the first thing is, of course, because you have more hands working towards building implementing the transformation, of course, you go faster and you can do it bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And the second and most important thing as a result of this is because the ownership of each and every people in the company is changing and moving towards this transformation to succeed, the mindset, the culture of the company changes into more digitalization, more automation. People understand and are willing, and the mindset is changing. The mindset is so important. The culture is so important.
So again, I'm going to try to simplify it so I understand it. So you need the management to be on board because you're solving the business challenges, and it's not going to happen without the management on board, right? But then from a staff perspective, from a team perspective, they need to be part of the journey. And what you're suggesting is that include them in the conversations on, the stuff that's happening, but maybe an easy way is to encourage people to spend some time on some of the low-code platforms or the no-code platforms, just to have a play, see what they can automate themselves kind of thing, and then share that upwards, kind of like the Google company, but I mean, they're a bit more advanced, right? But, where everybody gets their 20% time to spend on projects, something different, something else. Is that kind of a way in? Like, I'm not saying spend 20%, but, just give people the opportunity to just play around to see what they could automate themselves.
So definitely that's a great point. So empowering the people to do things is a good starting point, but we need to go further. And the next step is about incentivizing the people to do that. Okay. So I've seen many ways to incentivize people doing this, from contests that give awards to people, rewards to people in the shape of promotions, in the shape of MBA courses offered, in the shape of, it can be many things. But most importantly, it should be part of the KPIs of anyone.